democracy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this
Did
hearing.
you say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but what is the relevance of that to this
Here it is,
hearing?
Big as Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me
doctrine.
like your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, "There's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white." Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having to miss the testimony of some of you, and I appreciate you coming today. Professor Franks, let me ask you, I listened to your and Ms. Hemingway's testimony and Professor Turley's, so I got part of it. As I understand it, your position, Professor Franks, is that, I think you used the word myth. It is a myth that the Biden administration used government to compel speech, private speech, but that the Trump administration is doing that. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you're allowing your personal political beliefs to affect your objectivity here?
No, I do not. What is guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship and industrial complex.
I got that part.
No, I just
I got
want
that
to
part.
clarify.
No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said, I'm going to quote your words, "Taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy," end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, "When the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, "By simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court," referring to the current United States Supreme Court, "has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well," close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You try to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance
Well,
of this question is.
let me show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m., quote, "The majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this
Did you
hearing.
say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but what is the relevance of that to
Here it
this
is, big as
hearing?
Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact Your feelings about President Biden or President Trump?
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me
doctrine.
like you have your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, "There's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read that correctly? That's
Is there
my
a question that is relevant to this hearing?
Did I read that correctly? Do you really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president
Did you
and other
say
state
that?
officials for punishing people for
Did
their
you honestly say that, Professor?
I
And you
believe
expect us,
that the First
as a
Amendment,
Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
I believe that you should take
You
the First
heard of
Amendment
curb your
seriously, sir.
enthusiasm? Here's my saying, curb my nausea.
I
Thank you.
believe that you
Yeah,
should
the
take
time
the First
has
Amendment
expired. Thank
seriously.
you. Senator Durbin.
The Senate hearing took a sharp and uncomfortable turn when Senator John Kennedy used his allotted time to confront Professor Franks, a legal scholar testifying about alleged government censorship and First Amendment concerns. What followed was an intense exchange that many observers described as almost unwatchable, not because of theatrics alone, but because of the raw collision between academic rhetoric, political ideology, and the expectations of credibility before Congress. Kennedy began calmly, apologizing for having missed part of the earlier testimony and thanking the witnesses for appearing. He then turned directly to Professor Franks, summarizing what he understood to be her position, that claims the Biden administration coerced private speech were a myth, while similar conduct by the Trump administration was real and dangerous. Franks confirmed that this was an accurate characterization of her view. That confirmation set the stage for Kennedy's central line of attack. He asked whether she might be allowing her personal political beliefs to influence her objectivity. Franks rejected the suggestion outright, saying her conclusions were guided by Supreme Court precedent, not personal feelings. Kennedy acknowledged her answer but made clear he was unconvinced. With limited time remaining, Kennedy pivoted to Franks's own published work. He referenced a law review article she wrote in December 2023 for the New York University Law Review, addressing recent Supreme Court cases on guns and abortion. Quoting directly, Kennedy read passages in which Franks argued that the court had embraced the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy and that recognizing a right to armed self-defense in public promoted a culture privileging white men's capacity to terrorize and kill those they perceived as threats. Franks confirmed she had written those words. Then, Kennedy cited another line from the same article in which Franks wrote that by expanding gun rights while restricting abortion rights, the Supreme Court had turned the Constitution into a homicide pact. Franks acknowledged that the quote sounded like her writing. The senator's tone sharpened. His questioning was no longer about abstract constitutional theory, but about credibility and judgment. He moved next to Franks's social media activity, asking whether she used the platform formerly known as Twitter. She confirmed that she did, though she questioned the relevance. Kennedy pressed, suggesting she was highly active and deliberately provocative online. Franks again challenged the relevance, but Kennedy insisted it was central to assessing her neutrality. He then read aloud a tweet from November 7, 2024, in which Franks allegedly wrote that the majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy. Franks said she did not have the tweet in front of her, but acknowledged she had probably said something along those lines. She again asked how this related to the hearing's subject matter. Kennedy responded that the relevance was obvious, implying that such sweeping and inflammatory statements undermined her claims of objectivity. Kennedy continued by pointing to another tweet from May 2022, where Franks suggested that the conservative majority Supreme Court recognized gun rights but not abortion rights because of white male supremacy. When Franks questioned whether there was a relevant question forthcoming, Kennedy pressed her directly. Did she truly believe that the United States Supreme Court was guided by white male supremacy? At that point, the exchange devolved into open confrontation. Franks attempted to redirect the discussion back to First Amendment principles, stating that her concern was about government officials punishing speech. Kennedy cut her off, expressing disbelief and frustration. He reminded her that she was testifying as a Democratic witness and an officer of the court, and questioned how anyone could take her seriously if she truly held such views about the Supreme Court. His remarks grew increasingly personal. He accused her of being driven primarily by anger rather than legal analysis, and used sarcasm to underscore his disdain. Referencing a popular television show, he quipped that instead of "curb your enthusiasm," his reaction to her testimony was "curb my nausea." The comment drew audible reactions in the room. Before Franks could fully respond, the chairman intervened, noting that Kennedy's time had expired. Senator Durbin was recognized next, bringing the confrontation to an abrupt end. The exchange quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the hearing. Supporters of Kennedy argued that he had exposed what they saw as extreme bias and incendiary rhetoric from a witness who claimed neutrality. Critics countered that the senator's approach was unnecessarily hostile and designed to humiliate rather than illuminate substantive legal issues. What was undeniable, however, was the tension laid bare between academic freedom and the expectations placed on expert witnesses before Congress. Franks's writings and tweets intended for scholarly journals and social media audiences were suddenly placed under the harsh lights of a Senate hearing. Kennedy's questioning made clear that in such a setting, words written elsewhere can and will be used to challenge credibility.